When I stood in front of my new home and came face to face with someone I thought I'd never see again, my heart nearly stopped. Chapter 6. The car ride with Abby was surprisingly pleasant, and in the moments I forgot my entire messed up situation. I could call it having fun for once. Robbie the sandwich place she talked about was amazing, but it also might be the fact that I was starving. I am feeding for 2 people now. The further we go, the more secluded the area we are in becomes, seeing very few cars and people pass us on the way. We finally turn onto a dirt pathway well covered by the forest around us. The hazard lights light up the dark road ahead. You said the pack house was near Minnie's car park. Not in it, I comment, as I have to brace myself on the dashboard from the bumpiness of the road. Same thing, only the pack knows where the location of the pack house is. And a few others. Consider yourself an honored guest. She winks at me and I bite my lip trying not to smile. But somehow Abby knows that she's getting me to like her. Can I ask how many people are in the pack? Around 150. We're smaller than most, but I would like to think we're stronger. A lot of people that join the pack are from all over America and the world. And don't worry, you'll blend in fine. We get a lot of new wolves regularly, she explains as the trees start to clear ahead. I'm not sure about that, Abby. Have you ever had a half-wolf, half-human here before? I speak softly and I watch Abby sigh with a sad smile. If I'm honest, no, she says truthfully, turning to look at me before continuing. But if people do give you shit about it, which I doubt, then they go through me. We have all experienced hard times. Some even from who joined us. They can relate to you. Besides, I think the pack will enjoy having a baby around soon. It's been forever. I try to smile at her end comment. I really do, but my excitement that I felt might have existed doesn't show. I turn my gaze to my hands and there is silence as I feel Abby stare on the side of my face. Nothing more is said as we ride for the next 10 minutes in silence, feeling bad for making what turned out to be a fun road trip into misery. I should have just faked a smile at best. Welcome home. I turn my head to Abby before looking forwards as the lights from the many windows illuminates the large house in front of us. The house is lined with wooden paneling, giving the 5-story building a homely feel as we pull up a few meters away from the front porch. The engine stops, and the quietness of the night is disturbed after a few seconds by someone coming out the front door of the house. I'll get you settled in. Just have to check in with Mr. Alpha before anything else, Abby says with a playful note as she gets out of the car. I take a deep breath looking up at my new home as I see Abby meeting the person on the porch. I hop out of the car, shutting the door behind me as I hear her talking with that familiar voice. I approach the porch slowly. A couple meters away from the steps, Abby steps to the side to reveal the person and I stop dead in my tracks. His easygoing smile drops as his pale green eyes meet mine. My heart hammers against my chest as he steps towards me. Brooke. I don't respond in my shock and mild horror. He walks down the stairs, confusion prominent in his furrowed eyebrows. He halts a couple steps in front of me, looking me up and down to check if it is really me. I can't speak, still in stun mullet mode. His eyes stop midway and land right at the last place I want them to. My stomach. He takes another step towards me as I watch his hand extending outwards to my body. I flinch back to avoid him touching me, but being quicker than me, he grabs my wrist and holds me in place. Roughly. Grant, Abby says in warning, but it seems neither him nor me notice as I watch this time as his hand reaches the destination of my stomach. The weight of his hand is alarming but somehow comforting to feel. He closes his eyes, concentrating on something, and I jump when his eyes fly open and he steps quickly back, releasing me. That's not possible. His whisper is carried into the quiet night and I suck in a breath, realizing what he is talking about. How he managed to find out through whatever he did baffles me, but I know he knows. Grant. I say my first words to him in a month, hoarse from the lump lodged in my throat. I watch his nostrils flare and he turns around, stomping up the stairs onto the porch. Abby seems like she doesn't know what to do as he enters the house, slamming the door so loudly my bones rattle. I don't really remember Abby guiding me into the house. We walked up a couple flights of stairs before a door was being opened and I was being helped into a bed. I must have still been in shock as I feel the bed dip beside me. Abby watches me for a second before looking the other direction. Is the baby his? She asks in a whisper, and it takes me a while to form the simplest of words yes. She nods her head before getting up. Just give him some time to come around. I think he is in a bit of shock as well. Good night. With that she switches off the light I didn't even notice was on as she walks out of my now dark room and closes the door behind her. I don't remember falling asleep, but this morning when I wake up I feel so lost and disoriented it takes me a while to recount what has happened these past couple days. My body and mind feel heavy, refusing to get out of bed as the birds chirp and I hear voices coming from around the house. Grant's reactions last night managed to confuse me, or maybe I'm just in denial, hoping that last night was not a true expression of his feelings. A knock on the door drags me out of my thoughts. Come in. My voice is crow-quiet as I manage to drag my lazy body into a sitting position against the headboard. The door clicks open and Abby pops her head in. Good morning, sleepyhead. I rub my eyes. What's the time? I ask as I watch Abby cross her arms over her chest, giving me a little smirk. She walks in wearing her more casual clothes compared to when I have seen her. A simple pair of washed-out jeans and a loose tank top. 11:30. I was knocking every hour on the door since 8. She walks over to sit on the side of my bed. But it's understandable you slept in. I mean, your body clock must be out of whack from the past couple days. Yeah, I guess. I murmur, seconds before my stomach grumbles and I bite my lip from the volume of it. Abby chuckles. There's breakfast. Well, more like lunch downstairs. I'll bring you some clean clothes and leave them on your bed if you want to have a shower beforehand. Thanks, Abby, I say genuinely, having not felt so looked after in a few years. For everything. She smiles with a playful roll of her eyes as she gets up from my bed. You don't have to be so sentimental. It's not like we're saying goodbye forever. But I appreciate your thanks, she says with a soft smile, leaning on the doorframe to my right. You better have a shower. I think I can still smell the sewer system on you. I gape at her before grabbing a pillow and hurling it at her. But she just laughs and closes the door before it can reach her. I laugh a little too. After it dies out, I get out of bed to have a shower. Abby bought me a simple pair of jeans and a pretty shirt with some simple white lace accents on the shoulder sleeves. When looking in the mirror, I almost fully recognized myself back to normal, but I knew something was missing. As I walked out of my room, Abby was leaning on the white plaster wall outside in the hallway. She seemed to have a happy surprise when seeing me, not as worn out since she gives me the smile of approval. Come on, let's go eat. The pack house is quite neat and tidy as we walk down the corridors, with other wooden doors leading to other rooms and apartments. Abby says we are on the 4th floor of the house. The ground floor is where we are headed, with the main kitchen and dining area, as well as recreational areas such as the lounge room and gaming room. We finally make it to the kitchen that is huge and very industrial. A few people are there busy at work, cooking away as Abby approaches one lady, middle-aged, short and stout, stirring a saucepan over a blazing burner. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Good to see you. Her voice carries a very mild Italian accent. Hey Martha, I hope you have some lunch ready, Abby states as she peers into the saucepan before Martha, I am assuming, shoos her away with a smack on the back of the hand. You're lucky there is some left. I told you to be here earlier if you wanted lunch. What took you so long? Martha scowls. Abby just smirks, titling her head towards me. Sorry, but someone slept in a little later than expected. I feel a bit like a fish out of water as Martha turns her heat flush face to me. Some of her grey curls that fell out of her bun frame her face. Who is this then? She asks with a smile. Martha, this is Brooke. Brooke, this is Martha. She is head chef here and makes a mean spaghetti bolognese. Abby introduces us. Nice to meet you, I say with a nervous smile. Martha's curious stare gives me the jitters. Her eyes brighten though. Is this? She points to me, looking at Abby. Abby just gives a soft smile with an encouraging nod before Martha's gaze comes back to me. I am startled when Martha throws up her arms and crushes me in a bear hug. Her being smaller than me, her arms are just able to wrap around my shoulders. Oh, you poor girl. I am so glad Abby got you out of that horrible place. She pulls away slightly to look at me. You must be starving. They probably didn't feed you right there. Especially with a baby on the way. You're too thin. How many moths along are you, my dear? Abby finally cuts in through Martha's rambles of worries and questions. How about we just start with a nice bowl of bolognese? Save some questions for later. Abby says calmly but with the slightest hint of a warning tone as Martha fully pulls away from me. My comfort in the topic must have been showing on my face as Martha's eyes widen again in mistake. Oh, sorry, dear. Concern gets me carried away sometimes. I will get you to some lunch. Thanks, Martha. You're very kind. I say with a small smile of one I hope she recognizes as forgiveness. She smiles back before shuffling out of sight behind hanging pots and pans. With the steaming bowls of spaghetti bolognese, Abby leads me outside. The whole time I kept frantically looking everywhere for Grant, or making sure he wasn't there. He's in his office, Abby says out of the blue, as she sits down on the bench of a picnic table. I slot in on the opposite side. Who? I play innocent and Abby just gives me a bored look. You know who. Just give him some time to get his head around it. He'll talk to you, and if he doesn't, I will make him. She reassures me and I try giving a little smile before twirling my fork in the spaghetti. I push that thought of Grant out of my mind and think of something else, finally putting the spaghetti in my mouth, and I moan from the taste of it. Not because I haven't had a proper meal in ages, but the fact that it tastes so damn good. I know. Martha is from Italy. She's the best of the best. Abby explains, eating her food as well. Why did she come to America? Shoving another fork full of deliciousness into my mouth. To cut a long story short, her son got caught up with the wrong people over there, so she brought him here and she eventually found us a few years back. You'll meet Dom, her son, at the barbecue next week. Barbecue? I question. It's more of a party to celebrate our beta's mighty return. Abby exaggerates. I am surprised Caleb would be up and about so quickly, but that guy wouldn't miss a party for the world from what I have seen. That name rings a bell in my mind. Caleb Lynch. Suddenly so much makes sense, but there are so many more questions. My mind races and I feel my stomach churn uncomfortably as I had just finished my last bite of pasta. Brooke, you okay? I lift my head up to see Abby watching me with a concern as I start to feel sick. Yeah, sorry, just feeling a bit faint, I admit, standing up from the table. Do you want me to take you to the medical clinic? She asks, also getting up, but I just shake my head. A medical clinic reminds me too much of S.E. Which also reminds me of what I have done. No, I just need to lie down, it will pass. I step out from the bench. Say thanks to Martha. Her cooking is the best. I don't wait for a reply as I make my way back into the house. Luckily, I remember the way back to my room. I take calming breaths as I walk there, making sure I can relax myself. And my stomach. I guess morning sickness is catching up with me again. Touring a corner to finally get to the corridor where my room is, I nearly rebound off something, as I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. I look up and meet pale green eyes, and my calmness I was working on dissipates as I watch the curious look on his face. Before anything is said, my stomach lurches and I put a hand over my mouth and rush by him, just making it into my room's attached bathroom in time to hug the toilet bowl. That was embarrassing. Chapter 7. Luckily I had put my hair up today, so it didn't get in the way of my vomiting after lunch. I sat there for a few minutes, relaxing myself until I no longer dry heaved over the toilet or felt as dizzy. I turn around on my butt towards the door and nearly jump out of my skin as Grant stands there, watching me. I place a hand on my racing heart, throwing my head up to breath air. Are you okay? Grant's deep voice sounds slightly concerned, but I just nod as I start to get up. Slowly. Yeah, I'll be fine, I say softly, nervous in his presence. I sway slightly when I regain my footing and lean on the wall, pinching the bridge of my nose where ache is brewing. Let's just sit you down. I feel a hand on my waist and another supporting my upper arm. As I am lured out of the bathroom, I am eased onto the edge of my bed, sitting there comfortably as the hands vanish, taking some deep breaths. I hear a tap being turned on and off and Grant appears in front of me with a glass of water. He hands me the glass, making sure it's secure in my limp hand before he lets go. "Thanks you," I whisper. It feels good when the water washes down my burning throat, easing the pain. The dizziness fades in the slightest. The bed dips beside me, and I don't have to know it's Grant. Like when I first met him, and still now guilty as ever. His presence manages to make me nervous, yet excited at the same time. There's silence for a short time as I sip on my water, not knowing what to say. But Grant starts the dreaded, but needed conversation. "I'm sorry for how I reacted last night. It was just an overwhelming surprise." He chuckles nervously, but sadly at the end, and I shake my head. "It's all right," I manage to say. My throat makes my voice slightly croaky from beforehand. "No, Brooke, it's not," he states strongly, serious again. "Last night, all I could think about is what would happen if we didn't get you out. If we never found you. To think about all the horrible things they would have done to you and the..." His voice drifts off, not saying the word I know he is probably having just as much trouble saying out loud as I am. "I am here now." I try and say something comforting after that, to ease my thoughts just as much as his. "I am grateful. Honestly." I gain the courage to turn my head to him, only to find his stare on me, watching me like he did that night, and memories resurface and I force down the blush. "How did they find you?" He asks the one question I hoped could be avoided. I have this urge to spill my guts out on what I was really doing that night, and if I weren't distracting him, helping us. Oh, his beta wouldn't have been captured in the first place. By the sounds of it. His beta. Caleb went through worse than me. But I lie. They must have seen us together. I just remember the next day after we met at Vaults, two guys following me, a guy ended up there. I lied straight through my teeth. Like a coward. Afraid to know what he would think of me if he knew the truth. Grant nods and I calm down a bit. Him believing the awful lie. The night my beta was taken by them was the night we met. It makes sense, they must have followed you. There is some more. Slightly awkward silence as I scold myself for what I have done. "You're safe here, Brooke." His words are meaningful in the silence. "I'm going to make sure nothing like that happens to you again. But I just need you to give me some time to get my head around this." I understand. I have to come to terms with it too. I speak softly, looking back at him, and he gives me a smile. This time it's reassuring before he gets up. He turns to me at the doorway. "Are you sure you're all right? Do you need anything?" "I'm fine. I'll just rest a bit," I inform him, and he nods, satisfied. "Well, I suppose I will see you downstairs at dinner," he says, and I nod. He starts closing the door, before he sighs and whips his head around. "Abby asked to drive. Norton to drop by in a couple hours just for a checkup. He's just doing a routine check." A little caught off guard, I just nod again. "Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks for the looking after me." I nervously laugh and he smiles. That smile makes my heart flutter, even though I feel sick because of the lies I just told him. I might as well have given myself a fake name. "No problem. See you soon." With that he closes the door and I flop back on my bed, tempted to scream into my pillow. I just dug a bigger hole. By this point I find it hard to believe, from the liar I have become, that I will make it out. I didn't go downstairs for dinner that night, nor did I the next, or the next. This went on for the rest of the week. My new bedroom has become my sanctuary, a home of self-pity and hate from all that I have done. Also one of denial. As if tomorrow morning I will wake back in California, this all being a terrible dream. But that hasn't happened yet. Clive Norton, a middle-aged man, is my new doctor. When he did his routine checkup, he did the same things Abby's sister did, Ollie. He kept it light and gave me some information that helped, not freaking me out, which I appreciated. But since that I have been wallowing in my bed, getting up to shower, puke, because of morning sickness. Abby sometimes comes in and tries to talk, but I am not in a very chatty mood. Sometimes I wake up in the day, from one of my many naps and find a plate of food by my bed, which I try to eat. These days it doesn't come back up as much. But tonight, Abby comes dressed in more formal clothes. A pair of nice denim shorts and a pretty blue top with her hair curled. I lie on my side, facing the door as she comes to sit on my bed, patting my thigh under the douanet. She reminds me of when my step-mother would try and get me out of bed. It's the barbecue tonight, Brooke. I think it would be good for you to come out and get some fresh air. My mind immediately says no. Not wanting to meet new people and deal with the drama of everyone finding out I am pregnant. And the farther the alpha, bed sounds more appealing. Maybe another time. I whisper and I don't miss Abby's heavy sigh before she gets up and heads for the door. She is about to fully close it when I hear another voice, making her leave it ajar open. Is she coming? I recognize Grant's voice immediately. I bury myself deeper under my quilt. I hear a sigh from Grant. Can I talk to her? She just needs some time. Abby defends. She has had time. She has been cooped up there for a week. Let me just talk to her. Grant sounds slightly frustrated. Grant, we all know how you get when you don't get your way. And going in there and possibly losing Ian to help her. So maybe that's what she needs. Grant suggests. No, she doesn't. She has been through a lot. Abby sounds slightly frustrated too. Grant's voice raises. I know. She spent a whole damn month locked up in a room. It doesn't seem like anything has changed. She might as well be back in that place. Something snaps in me when he says that. Because he's right. Grant. Abby wounds. Stop before you regret saying anything else. We can't force her out of that room. She needs time. Let's just go and enjoy Caleb's return tonight, and we can help Brooke when she is ready. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There is no reply as I hear someone walk away, before my door is finally fully closed. My eyes close tight, as if I could block the thoughts in my head. I could still be locked in S. Oh, by the way, I have been. Ollie and Abby risked a lot getting me out, and I repay them by locking myself away. Yes, I wish my life had panned out differently. A baby was not on my list of things to do when I turned 24. Maybe a bit more into the future, with an actual husband. But things have changed. And I think, Brooke, it's time to accept it. And maybe it's time to tell the truth. I could come clean tonight about everything to Grant. Admit my part in the plan that night. I forced myself out of bed, stretching as I walked to the inbuilt closet to find the nice pair of jeans Abby lent me, and also finding a really pretty grey knit jumper to put on. I tie my curly hair in a bun before washing my face with water. I look myself one last time in the mirror, before smiling, which for once in the past month, actually comes naturally. Chapter 8. When stepping out of the house for the first time in ages, fresh air fills my lungs and a part of me wonders what was I thinking. The evening is cooler in temperature, and I fold my arms as I follow the sound of music and people talking. It's a calm night and I appreciate the forest around me on a trail leading closer to a pack of werewolves I have never met before. Well, maybe they're not all strangers. I never was that bad at meeting new people. I normally tried harder so they didn't see what everyone else supposedly saw in me. A halfling. That apparently was a bad thing. Jordan, my brother, would like it here. He was never into life indoors. We had fun when we played by the forest back home. Playing games he always won, or he would let me win once in a while. My breath catches when I think about what is happening in that place. What they could be doing to him. Maybe if I come clean, get them to trust me, they can help my brother like they helped me, get him out. Or would after what happened with Caleb make him untrustworthy? Come to think of it, my brother might have known him if Caleb took the money. Why did Caleb take the money? I stop my racing thoughts and just force myself to focus on tonight. I need them to trust me. And if it means telling Grant the truth, so be it. I get closer to the clearing and the smell of a smoky bonfire and barbecue sparks my senses and my appetite. It's a larger clearing than I realized as I stand on the border. It's filled with tables, benches, chairs and picnic blankets all circled around a few bonfires. A few children run around. I notice most of the people here are young to older adults, not many children at all. I find a couple eyes looking my way, and I muster a polite smile as I make it further into the clearing. More eyes spot me as I try to find a familiar face. Feeling like Avu as I feel out of place. Just like old times. Brooke. My head whips to the left to see Abby on a lawn chair. Eyes wide when seeing me. I smile nervously and she gets up from her chair. Beer in one hand as she comes to me. Concern on her face. Are you okay? Did something happen? I furrow my eyebrows no. Does something look wrong? I slightly panic as I look down at my outfit and back up at Abby, who is smiling. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Come on. I'll introduce you to some people. She waves me over to a small little group all along lawn chairs and a picnic blanket. It consists of 4 other people. A slim woman with brown hair and a younger man, around my age. On the opposite armchair, a man sits down with a blonde woman casually on his lap as they laugh and talk. Everyone, their heads look up to us, before all the attention is on me. This is Brooke. Abby gestures to me before pointing to the brown-haired woman. This is Vera, 3rd in command. She smiles and I smile back before Abby continues. This is Dom. Don't take any notice of him. She teases which Dom, who I recognize as Martha's son, with his blonde hair and innocent blue eyes. He glares at her playfully. And last but not least, my sister, Annie, with her mate forward/husband, Sean. Annie looks more like Holly, Abby's other sister with the same body type but face-wise. She very much looks like Abby. When I see Sean with his buzzed black hair, it takes me a second to realize he is missing his right eye. It's not that noticeable. The skin has grown over where I assumed would be a hole in his head. He still, though, is a very attractive person. Nice to meet you guys. I give a slight wave and they all smile welcomingly. That eases my mind a bit. You sit down, Brooke. Have my chair, I will snatch one and be right back. Abby walks off into the party and I turn back and cautiously walk over to her lawn chair and sit down. So, I turn to look at Annie as she smiles at me. You must be the girl my sisters broke the rules for. I suppose that's me. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I am not surprised about. She admits before furrowing her eyebrows. But Ollie, you must be very special if she is willing to go behind the alpha's back and put herself at risk at that place. I notice Annie might be fishing around for an answer and possibly I hasn't told her that I am pregnant yet, which I am actually quite grateful for. Who cares why? To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sean says, rubbing her upper arms as she tilts her head back. Sean's voice softens. At least, they got her out. He looks at me, in an almost understanding before back at his wife, who also was an expression of sympathy. At that moment Babby comes back, carrying in one hand another pull-out lawn chair and sits it down beside me. She sits back on it. In her other hand, she holds her beer as well as a soda. She offers it to me before taking a swig of her beer again. I say and listen to the hiss of the can as I open the bubbly liquid. It catches me off guard for a second for not having it for a long time. I'll see you guys later, Vera says, causally getting out of her chair. Waving goodbye before heading away into the relaxed evening. Okay. Who said something? Abby waves her head around the group, and when her eyes land on Dom, he seems frightened before pointing to Annie and Sean. Why would you talk about us? Oh, in front of her. I'm sorry, I didn't realize till it was too late. Annie apologizes, and I can see the guilt on her face. I mean, we weren't directly talking about it. Vera was taken by S. Oh, I question as all eyes go to me. Abby answers softly. She never talks about it though, so best not to bring it up. I still can't believe she got 3rd in command. Abby adds bitterly, and it seems everyone rolls his or her eyes at her. You're still going on about that? Annie whines. What? Abby complains. Maybe she got third in command because she doesn't cross Grant as many times as you. And she actually listens to his orders. Shan't suggest teasingly as Abby scowls. She addressed everyone. I think Grant especially is happy in my most recent rule-breaking extravaganza. My jaw tenses, as I fear where she's heading. And why would Grant be happy? Annie asks, and Abby looks like me, caught in a sticky situation. I speak up. Is there something to eat? I'm starving. Yet, I'll take you there. We get up from the chairs, wave a goodbye before we are walking away. We get further enough away, so they can't see us when I turn to Abby and glare at her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Even though I think it was obvious we avoided the question, I'm still happy we got away. So you're fourth in command. Yep, I was going to be third if I didn't argue with Grant in front of the whole pack, she says bitterly as I start to smell the strong tasty aroma of food. What were you arguing about? Nothing worth mentioning now. She drifts off, and I think that is an indication to stop talking about it. Dan was very quiet. I changed the topic and Abby nods, with a sad smile. Well, you'll never get him to talk. His tongue was cut out. Abby takes the last swig of her beer before throwing in a bin. I am slightly shocked, realizing why he was so quiet, and he pointed instead of talking. Is that why Martha came to America? Abby nods. He was young when it happened. He got caught up with a bad pack over there and he went too far. They made sure he couldn't say anything about what he saw and did. My heart sinks for Dom, but he seemed happy, at least and I know now. We have walked further to the border of the other side of the clearing, and that's when I smell the mouth, watering barbecue going on. It's mainly surround my men that are in charge, and I notice Martha nearby making sure everything is running smoothly. Oh great. Abby sarcastically comments on something as I look over to see a lot of guys mucking about and cheering. See that guy in the middle? I watch and the guy that is getting shoved around looks familiar. His dark brown hair's all messed up and his dimples are prominent on his cheek as he laughs. He was the guy at the club, the one arguing with Grant before he left. Oh crap, that's Caleb. I thought he would be that drunk in a few hours. Guess I was wrong, Abby says as she walks over to the barbecue. I watch Caleb a few more seconds, and when Grant goes to talk to him, a smile on his face as he puts Caleb on the shoulder. I hurriedly catch up to Abby, not wanting to be caught. After receiving and devouring a tasty-looking hamburger, and a quick hello to Martha, who still thinks I am still too skinny, Abby and I start to walk away. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We stop and Abby curses under breath. She turns around. She forces a smile. You look better. He smirks as he walks up to us, swaying in the slightest. I can feel Abby's irritation radiating off her. I am guessing she doesn't like Caleb. Feeling better also. He pauses when he looks at me, he squints his eyes and tilts his head. My face goes slightly flush and I start to panic. I try to keep my face neutral as all the bats and areas go through my head. He recognizes me from the nightclub. Or was he remembers my last name, or he knows me through my brother. Hang on. He lazily points at me. You look familiar. Abby just shakes her head. You're an idiot. Let's go, Brooke. We are about to walk away when Caleb gasps behind us. You're the girl from the club. I bite my lip. The loudness of his voice turning heads around us. I reluctantly look to see him smiling slightly. One of the heads that turned was Grant. When spotting me, he seems slightly confused, but he joins Caleb. Wait. If you're the girl, Caleb looks between Grant and I can just see the cogs working in his head. I am assuming that Grant would inform his beta about most new things in the pack, including me, and a new little person in my stomach. No, then that means you're. Grant grabs Caleb's shoulder rougher than anyone should, making Caleb hunch over as he is unable to finish his sentence. I watch as Grant grits out whispered words into his ear. When he's finished, he gives Caleb a slight push back to the rest of the guys who welcome him back with opened arms and they start messing around again. Once satisfied he isn't coming back, Grant turns his head back to me. An apology is written on his face as he walks closer to Abby and me. I wasn't expecting to see you here. I'm glad you got out of that room. Like the last minute didn't happen. I'm glad not to recall it. I nervously smile back at him. Well, you're right. I might as well be back cooped up in my room all week. Grant furrows his eyebrows and tilts his head in puzzlement. I overheard you and Abby talking outside my room. His eyes widen looking at me. Then they turn on to Abby in a deadly glare. Is that the reason you didn't fully close the door? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Abby gets defensive. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I had to get her head out of her ass and outside some way or another, even if my methods weren't moral. Is that your excuse? Grant grits out. What, it worked, didn't it? Abby bites back and I find myself letting loose a laugh which causes them both to look over to me. I can see what Sean was talking about. I say with a smile and Grant laughs where Abby scowls at me. Her gaze falls back to a grinning Grant, and if it weren't for the little girl in a white dress that walks up to Abby, I wonder what would have happened to Grant. Auntie Abby. I can't find Mummy and Daddy. The little girl looks like she's about 3 or 4 as she taps Abby's leg in her little white dress and a flower crown around her head. Her fair blonde hair matches Abby's. Abby sighs happily as she picks up her niece and rests her on her hip. The little girl wears a pout as she looks to her aunt. Well, you're lucky, Lily. If you didn't come right now, there would have been an ugly fight. Abby says in a kiddie voice. Before she turns to me, do you want to come? I am taking this little one back to Annie and Sean. Lily squalls as Abby shakes her playfully back and forth, creating smiles on both their faces. Abby's eyes turn back to me. No, I'm feeling a little tired, I might head back. I answer, exhaustion hitting me just after eating. Well, we can walk back to the group. Then I can take you. Abby is cut off by Grant. I can take her back. It's fine, Abby. Grant says kindly, but with no room for argument. Abby nods, not saying anything to Grant, probably still annoyed at him from earlier before she walks back the way we came with her niece still in her arms. I turn back to Grant. Now that I got him alone, it's time to tell him the truth. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Chapter 9. I feel more nervous than ever as Grant walks me back to the pack house. It's starting to get dark and I am grateful for the guidance, as I would probably get lost if I was to walk back alone. We haven't really said much to each other, even though there is so much to say. Well, on my account at least. But when we were far enough away from the clearing, I was going to tell him everything. But then it struck me. If Caleb hadn't taken the money from my brother in the first place, then I wouldn't be here, in this situation. But is that a good enough reason not to tell him? It kept me thinking. It kept me quiet on the trail back to the pack house. I'm sorry about Caleb. He can be an unpredictable ass when he's drunk. Grant breaks the silence, and I look up to him. Don't worry about it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. It was the only word that came to mind, and Grant just laughs at me. Well, I suppose that is a good word. That's how the ladies describe him anyways. Grant teases and I spit out a laugh, looking at him again, surprised. What? I'm sorry, but you didn't seem like the type of guy to make jokes like that. I mention, and he smirks at me. What kind of person do I strike you as, Brooke? He rubs his palms together. Dark, mysterious, authoritative. The word just comes out and Grant slows down. Some of the playfulness leaves him when I say it, and I start nervously rambling like I do in these awkward situations. I meant it in a good way. I find that I can trust you and I just find you brave. I mean, you're not hiding like most shadows do. You actually making. Grant stops me, grabbing my forearm to spin me towards him. He's back to serious mode again. How do you know that? He questions, What do you mean? Slightly frightened by his tone. How do you know I'm a shadow? He says in a hoarse whisper, as if someone could be listening. I stumble on my next words. S-E-R. O told me when they found out I was pregnant. I answer, telling the truth. Grant steps back, saying a few nasty curse words under his breath. I guess this would be alarming news if a place like O knows you to be one of the few strongest supernatural beings left. I feel worse from his reaction, and I know it's now or never to tell the whole truth. I take a deep breath. Grant, there was something I needed to tell you. Grant. His name is called from a distance away, and I hear running footsteps. A guy about the same age as me, in his mid-20s, comes down the trail, and he stops when seeing us. The smile on his face falters. Oh, sorry. I didn't, was it, Rick? Grant grits out, and it is obvious he has a short temper, which I have seen since I have been here. Well, it's nearly time for your speech. And Abby says you better come quick because the guest of honor is going to pass out soon. Grant groans in the slightest and looks to me. See you soon, I say, and starting heading back to the house. I'm not that far away anyways. I tilt my head back to see Grant watching me before he turns around without a word and follows Rick back to the clearing. I barely sleep that night in my frustration of not telling Grant. The longer this goes on, the guilt I am going to feel. But part of me is glad I didn't say anything, because I don't know the whole truth yet about what is happening. Caleb stole the money from my brother, and Grant was surprised to find out that knew he was a shadow. They had a picture of him. How could he not know that? Especially if he is big on protection of identity. But this morning I find myself with some extra energy, and no morning sickness, which brings a smile on my face. I get out of bed and realize I don't really have anything to wear. I walk downstairs in my borrowed track Eastern shirt I got from Abby to the kitchen. The aroma of a full English breakfast hits my nose, and I wander into the stainless steel room with pots and pans cooking away. Brooke. I turn to see the familiar face of Martha, stirring a pot over a burner. It's good to see you are finally down here. Well, something smelled amazing. I comment and Martha smiles at me. Good. My time to fatten you up then, she says, looking back down at her saucepan, stirring something inside with a wooden spoon. I shake my head, her thinking I am too skinny still. I feel good today, and slightly positive when I mention, I'm going to be quite fat in a few months, Martha. She turns her gaze back to me, probably just as surprised as me about mentioning my pregnancy. But Martha then wears a gleaming grin and takes the saucepan off the heat. Well, if your baby is anything like this one, she points with her wooden spoon behind me, and that's when I noticed Don walk into the room. He is going to make you gain a few to many extra pounds. Don just puts on a cheeky smile before kissing her cheek and walking down the other direction to the fridge. Who made you gain to many extra pounds? Abby walks in at that moment and she smiles at me, saying a quick good morning before looking back at Martha. Don, when I was pregnant with him, he gave me the craving for one to many biscotti, she says, dishing up scrambled eggs onto a large plate. Abby gives me a wary glance about to change the topic, but I intervene. I whisper mainly to her and she seems confused but then nods with a small smile. So is that one of the things to look forward to in the coming month? Cravings. Martha laughs. So you have many more things, my dear. Cravings, sleep deprivation, bladder control, and don't forget the dreaded mood swings and hormones. A little bit of my positivity drains away, think about it. But my dear, it will be worth it. Martha smiles at me, and my spirits are lifted. They are lifted higher when Dom comes back, guzzling down milk from the carton, and Martha has a face of horror when spotting him. Mostly worth it, I hear her whisper under her breath before she is nagging Dom. He stops drinking, lifting up his hands in surrender and walking past me. He gives me a playful wink on his way out, which I chuckle at as Mother follows him, still nagging, out the door. I turn back to Abby, who also seemed amused by that little show. So, I have a plan for today, if that's all right with you. Abby tells me, and I quirk and eyebrow up. What's the plan? She starts off. I've been missing a good pair of jeans recently, and if I take them back you might be walking in your underwear. So I think it's best if we go on a little shopping spree. I smile a little at comment and nod my head. I am up for a shop, but I don't see a shopping center anywhere nearby. I indicate and Abby smirks. It's a 2.5-hour drive. There and back from the main shopping center, but we can make a day out of it. What do you say? Abby sounds slightly excited. But me on the other hand, I am slightly skeptical. As much as I love to go out spending, I don't think I can afford it. I mention and Abby tilts her head in confusion before smiling and waving it off. You're not paying. The whole pack is a joint account we use for supplies and needs. And I am pretty sure you need some new clothes. How about we leave in an hour? I know I won't get anywhere about complaining that I feel bad for taking their money, so I nod my head ready to go out into the real world again. After Martha had filled me up to the point where I had to walk away so she didn't fee anymore, I got dressed and Abby and I started the drive to wherever this shopping center is. It feels nice having a friend and going out. I never really had an experience like this before when I was living in California. It was normally just me or my stepmom or brother, who I didn't mind. But this feels nice. How does Grant feel about us going out? Wondering if he was all right with this. Yet I am met with silence from Abby's side, and when I look at her I can see the answer on her face. Grant doesn't know where we are going. Look, it's not like I didn't tell someone. It's just if I told Grant he either would have made a big deal about it or made us not go at all, she explains. Besides, that man needs to live a little for a change. I furrow my eyebrows. What do you mean by that? Abby takes a quick glance at me, her hand securely on the steering wheel. You told me how you knew about him being a shadow breed. She softens her tone on her next words. So you know how cautious he would be. He worries too much and he says it's based on the pack's welfare. But I know he is just waiting for us. A group of hunters to find him. I stay silent in my thoughts. I guess that's the reason he is always so serious and cautious. He's scared and he has every right to be. So just think of this as a way of him not to worry. Besides, he is away from the pack house today, and I told my sister where we are going, so if anything happens, which I doubt, then she knows where we are. I was going to ask where Grant was if he wasn't at the pack house. But I guess that's none of my concern right now. I just focus on the road ahead when something crosses my mind, or my appetite. We aren't going to pass Robbie's on the way by any chance. I question and I hear Robbie's laugh. How about we make a pit stop on the way back? The shopping center we end up in is not small but not large either. It has your basic stores you would find in one of these places. I start off with clothes, which Abby helps me with. I try and find more baggy things considering they might not fit me in a few months' time. But Abby reassures me we can come back to get new clothes when needed. With bags full of all my new things, we walk past a bookshop and I can't help but stare inside. I used to love to read when I was younger. But when I traveled around a lot, the last thing on my mind was to remember a good book to bring along. You can go in if you want, Abby says, and before I know it she's taking the bags from my hands. I'll put these in the car, and I'll come back and get you, I say before saying bye and heading in. My first problem in a bookshop is where to begin, but I find myself just browsing through the books, tracing their spines with my fingers when a title catches my attention. Guide to Pregnancy. I take the book out and look at the blurb. All the things to know from conception to birth. A week-to-week guide on your baby's growth. I immediately want to slot the book back, but instead I sigh and clutch the book to my chest. Time to accept this too. And my dad always used to say you can never know too much about anything. I walked to the front counter and purchased the book. Abby had given me some spending money for any other things I wanted. The lady puts it in a bag and hands me it with my change. Abby has good timing. When I exit the shop, she is already outside and waiting. She smiles when seeing me and then has a face of curiosity when she spots the bag. What did you get? And I show her the book and she cringes. Not quite my cup of tea. I didn't think so. I laugh as we start heading to the car park. Do you need anything else? No, I'm good, you. I shake my head and we start heading back to the big black Land Rover we drove down in. When we enter the underground car park, a weird feeling comes over me, like we're being followed. I tilt my head behind me in the slightest and shift my gaze and see movement. About to alert Abby. I turn to her. I know, she whispers, and we are a few feet away from the car when the first shot is fired. Chapter 10. I hit the ground, like I always do when hearing a gunshot. Abby, however, runs the opposite direction of our car. I turn my head to look and see her battling one of the gunmen holding a rifle. Before I can get up myself, someone else is yanking my up by my sleeve. On instinct, I elbow my attacker in the face. I feel the crack of his nose and then a cry before something clatters to the ground. His rifle lays untouched on the floor and I pick it up. Turn around and aim. The bullet hits him in the shoulder and he falls back from the impact. I turn to see Abby struggling to keep 3 guys off, and that's when I aim again. I hit the one guy in the stomach. It would have been his shoulder if he weren't in range of hitting Abby as well. That gets their attention and Abby has the time to knock the second guy out before getting the other guy in headlock until he passes out. Abby hurriedly walks back to me. Come on. We start walking quickly to the car when another gun goes off, then we're running. I hurried it into the passenger's side. I watch Abby get in and then another gun goes off and Abby curses. Blood sprays on the inside of her car window before she closes the door with a cry of pain that has my heart racing. She forces the keys into the ignition before pulling it out and speeding the hell out of here. Nothing is said as we are on the freeway. Abby consistently looking in the rearview mirrors and wincing when she has to overtake a car. Turning the wheel hurts her wound. Where are you hit? I ask and she just shakes her head. It's a graze wound. I'm fine. It will heal. She waves it off, turning and biting her lip when we take the exit to head back home. This road is quiet and I don't like being alone on the road. We are too open out here, and I probably jinxed myself when a huge dark car speeds up behind, gaining on us. Shit. Abby curses and puts her foot down, and I nearly get whiplash from the acceleration this car goes. But speeding away doesn't help us as more bullets are flying our way, rebounding off the car. I throw the bag with my book in the back and hold my rifle to my chest, which I notice is heavily loaded. I take a peek at the review mirror. I hate to admit this isn't my first car chase. When I crane my neck though, I feel a weird tingle and pull in the back of my neck and slap my hand where I felt it. I rub it and notice a weird bump that was never there before. They put a tracker in me. Why hadn't I noticed that before? Ahead I see another exit, and I turn to Abby. Do you trust me? Abby looks at me confused but then nods. Turn at the next exit. I take a deep breath before winding down my window. I get my gun ready, positioning it so it is only peeking out my window. And I don't lean out of the car in case they want to shoot me on sight. I feel the car doing a massive turn, the speed making the car drift, and it's enough time to aim my gun. The car behind us is still on the highway, giving me perfect range of their right forward and back tires. I shoot the crap out of the tires, the bullets ripping them to shreds as the air deflates out of them and the car does what I wanted it to. The top of the car crushing inwards and the glass smashing as it tumbles off the road. I fall back into my seat, clutching my gun and closing my eyes, calming myself. The exit has taken us onto another less lonely highway and I take my chance and look at Abby. She seems shocked into silence for the first time since I have known her. Holy crap, Brooke, she whispers, taking a glance at me before giving a nervous shrug. At least this is the way to Robbie's sandwich shop. We end up pulling into the small dinner in the middle of nowhere. I quickly run in and get some food, leaving Abby in the car. When I come back, I leave the food on the back seat and find one of the many T-shirts I had just bought. I open Abby's car door to see her clutching her wounded arm with her other hand. She seems tired, and I don't blame her. Blood-loosed as that. Okay, let's get a bandage around this, I say and use my shirt, ripping it to create a compress. I liked that shirt, Abby teases as she adjusts herself with a winsome let's go of harm. As careful as possible, I wrap the ripped shirt around her upper arm and tie a knot to at least stop the blood flow. She is not healing as quick, since I worked out that the bullets in their gun were laced with silver. Once I am done, I look to Abby again. Okay, do you need help moving to the passenger side or not? Abby gives me a funny look, and I know she is about to protest, but I cut in. I'm driving whether you like it or not. You're losing blood, Abby. I quietly end in Abby groans before I help her move across the passenger side. I jump in front of the wheel and lean behind me to retrieve a water bottle and Abby's order of a BLT to give to her. It will keep your strength up and it will distract you from falling asleep. Abby directs me on the road so we can get back home. And when she finishes hers, which is when she starts stalking again. Although I notice her voice is weak. Now are you going to tell me where you learned to shoot like that? Abby breaks the silence and I sigh. Maybe if I start with this truth about me, it might be easier to come clean about the whole truth. Well, when I was younger, growing up in a pack without canines and claws, I was the easy target. I start the story as Abby stays quiet and I look at her every once in a while to make sure she hasn't fallen asleep. So when I was around 15, I liked to go to a shooting range and learnt self-defense, and I don't know. I guess I was good at it. When I graduated high school, as cliché as it sounds, I was recruited by a secret government security organization. The memory pains me to think about it. What I used to do. I figured out though that this wasn't a government organization, and what I was really doing was hunting down the supernatural. And I was forced to take them away or mainly kill them. Abby is stone silent, and I knew this was going to make her see me in a different light. How did you get out? Abby asks. I faked my death about a year ago. I ran to New York and been there since. I half lie and half tell the truth on that one. I did fake my death. I went to New York for my brother though. If I knew what I was actually doing, I would never have Brooke. We've all done things we wish we never did. Believe me. And part of me wants to ask Abby the deep hidden part she's keeping locked up from that statement alone. But I don't. That's her choice to tell me. The rest of the journey is quiet. The bumpy road back to the pack house keeps me on my toes from the fact I hadn't driven in a long time. When we finally do pull up in front of the pack house, late in the afternoon, I get out of the car and around to Abby's side and help her out. I notice she is a little paler, and I'm about to ask where the medic clinic is, but a slamming door against the wall stops me. I look up to find Grant fuming as he stomps down the stairs off the porch. Caleb following him, but not as angrily. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Grant points at Abby walking towards her and only stops when he notices that I am supporting her. I am under her shoulder. Grant's gaze shifts to mine. What happened? Can we please get her some help before I start explaining things? Abby's weight becoming a struggle. Grant looks to Caleb, nodding his head towards Abby. Caleb comes and takes Abby from me, carrying her bridal style back into the pack house. I can feel Grant staring at me and I reluctantly look at him. And I start to explain things. Chapter 11. By the time I finished explaining everything, the car flip and even about my secret past of unintentionally hunting down the supernatural, I think the adrenaline of today had worn out. I was wiped. At least Grant had the decency to let me explain everything in the main lounge room on the first floor. Then make me walk up all those awful stairs to his office. He stays quiet through the whole thing, listening and processing. I paused sometimes for a reaction, but he never interrupted, which I found a good thing, but he might also be a ticking time bomb and blow up after everything I have to explain is said. And when I am done, I wait. Are you okay? Is the first question he asks, and I am a little caught off guard. Yeah. Exhausted, but fine. I admit. He nods his head and gets up from the lounge across from me. Abby will have to take responsibility for this. Firstly, taking away her position as fourth in command, Grant says, and I cut in. No, Grant seems supersized by my interruption, but I continue. Yes, we should have told you, but Abby isn't to blame for us. Finding us. It's my fault. Grant seems confused, but then softens his face. Brooke, it's not your fault. No, it is. It's just because, well, look. I bend forward, moving my messy hair away from the back of my neck. I feel around with my fingers at the nape of my neck when I find a little bump. Can you see it? There's a few seconds of silence and I feel the soft touch of Grant's fingers on my neck and a shiver goes down my spine. He feels the lump. To my agent extraordinaire, webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Did you disarm it? He sounds worried. I flip my hair back as I sit up again. No, but they have had a while to come here. I think by being so far away in the forest they lose the signal. But I was hoping you could get it out. Grant seems more relaxed by my answer and nods his head. Come, I'll get Drive Norton to get it out. He offers his hand to me, which I take as he pulls me up and leads me to the medical clinic Drive. Norton did manage to get out the tracking device with a scalpel and some tweezers. Once out it took 2 seconds before Grant destroyed it, dropping it on the floor and stepping on it. It wasn't planted too far into my skin, so I didn't need stikes. Just a bandage. Abby seems to be doing all right. She needed stikes for her wound to heal properly. I was also there when Grant decided to give her what seemed like a routine lecture. But now I lay in bed, replying today over in my head. I feel exhausted, but my mind is overactive from the events that occurred. I sigh, slapping my hand on my forehead in frustration, as if the hit would knock my brain out. I decide a different approach and get out of bed, walking out my room down to the kitchen. Once near the entrance to the kitchen, I find a table covered with my shopping bags. Someone must have brought them in, which I am grateful for. I scrimmage through them and find the bag from the bookshop and pull out the book. It's never too late to learn. I find the pantry in the kitchen, looking for something to snack on and smiley to when I discover the jar of peanut butter. Once retrieving a spoon, I sit at the main countertop where they keep steel stools to sit on and read my book whilst enjoying my snack. I start to read the first chapter, which is on conception. I skip that chapter. The second chapter takes me through the few things I have been experiencing, such as fatigue or morning sickness. Completing intrigued with the book and enjoying refilling my spoon with peanut butter, so often I didn't notice someone at the door watching me. Can't sleep. I jump at the voice, nearly dropping my peanut-covered spoon on my new book. I scowl at Grant, who is smiling as he comes in, but soon my face dropped down to his naked torso. It's not like I hadn't seen it before, but... Well, Brooke. Yeah. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I pull my eyes away from his ABS and back to his face. It was probably obvious of what I was looking at, but Grant doesn't say anything as he walks in his pajamas pants to the pantry. I thought you would be fast asleep from today. I hear his voice coming from the pantry. Me too. But it seems my brain doesn't want to shut up just yet. I say back, scanning though the pictures in the book, nibbling on my peanut butter again. Grant comes back around and places a jar on the table, with a spoon before he sits on a stool opposite from me. He opens the lid, and that's when I notice it to be Nutella. Oh, so you're a chocolate spread kind of man, I comment. Grant smiles at me before dunking his spoon in the jar, and it comes out with the chocolate goodness. And it seems you prefer peanut butter. I warn you, the only time you count at this stuff is in the middle of the night when Martha isn't around. She doesn't think it's real food. Oh, so that's why the jars were so well hidden, I comment, and Grant nods with a smile. Grant peers down on the counter. What are you reading? I look down and feel it a little awkward all of a sudden. Grant and I haven't talked about the baby yet. But I guess this is a good step forward. We have been kind of treating it like a massive elephant in the room that we don't want to discuss. I lift the book up and show him the front cover, and in a second his eyes widen in surprise before he nods his head. But the smile on his lips seems forced and slightly nervous. Right. There's some silence before I break it. So why are you up at this hour? Grant is about to say something, but he closes his mouth, looking down at his jar before back at me. He takes a deep breath. If I am completely honest, I was thinking about you and the baby. He struggles with the last word, and I nod along as he continues. It hasn't sunken in yet. It doesn't seem real. I know that's an awful thing to say, but Grant... His eyes meet mine, and I give him a soft smile. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's like that for me too, but I guess I have had a little longer to think about it than you have. Have any tips? He smirks sadly, and I think for a second before looking down at the book, and I smile. I flick through a few pages until it's the week I am currently in and find the picture I was looking for. Maybe you're one of those people who have to see it to believe it. lifting up the book off the counter to show the ultrasound photo of a baby that is nearly 2 months old. That's what the baby looks like about now. He or she is only about 0.5 centimeter big. Grant's eyes seem attached to the photo, and I regret my method. About to close the book, I notice a small smile on his face. Wow. But then I see his smile turn sad. I guess something that small can't be that scary. Mind you, babies do get bigger. That's why my stomach will be the size of a watermelon in a few months. I tease and Grant's smile comes back. I close the book and counter. I soften my voice. Did that help or freak you out more? Grant just chuckles while shaking his head. And you right. And I furrow my eyebrows in confusion. I'm the type of guy that needs to see it to believe it. That might just be my fault. About to ask what he means by his statement, I don't get the chance as he screws back on the lid for the Nutella. I better get back to bed. And I hope you do too. He gets up from the chair before walking behind me to put the jar back in the pantry. He walks to the exit before he turns around. Thanks, Brooke. Good night, he says with a small smile. Good night, I say back before he turns, heading out of the kitchen. But my eyes can't help but wander to his back. And the way those muscles move when he walks. I mentally slap myself as I shake my head. Not the time to be checking him out. Brooke. I decide to open up my book again, only to find the title Hormones. I slam the book shut. 2 months down, 7 more to go.